All right, welcome back to the Pave America podcast. We got myself, Hayden Cortez with National Pavement Partners, Zach Milewski with National Pavement Partners, and our special guest of the day is Mr. Brandon Blewett with Pave America. He is the head of mergers and acquisitions, so whoever is pretty much trying to sell, Brandon is the point of contact. Yeah, Brandon's trying to talk to. So how did you, let's start with a little bit of background about you. How did you get into this kind of position and end up ultimately getting with Pave America?
So out of graduate school, I started off in the sexiest area of law ever. It was tax law.
Nice.
Right. After 2 years of that, I realized I really like deals and I got some good experience, but I wanted to switch into something that was a little more fun where I got to actually talk to people. So I did consulting for, call it 10 years and really got to see end-to-end deals and advise companies on how to do it, but I wasn't doing it myself. So I started taking on roles where I was supporting someone like myself to go out and meet the businesses, talk to the people, convince them that it was a good decision to sell, and then work with them post-close to make sure everything was working out for them and for us. And then I met Tom, call it 2.5 years ago, and this just was a really exciting opportunity because the space is a lot of fun and there's a lot of growth opportunity here. So it's been a blast.
The growth for sure, the fun occasionally. I'm just kidding.
No, it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. There's a lot of challenges in this, in our industry that is pretty unique, that doesn't match, and every industry has their own set of challenges. So
right.
Tax law to
consulting
to now Pave America.
Correct.
That's awesome, man.
2 years ago, I think I was here having lunch with both of you trying to convince you to sell, and now you're hosting me on the Pave America podcast.
I know.
So flip the script.
It's funny how that works, huh? Full 360 on you.
Full 360. It's awesome.
So I'd like to just kind of talk about kind of our story a little bit too.
Absolutely.
How did you hear about NPP? And then let's talk about your experience with us kind of right off the bat.
Yeah.
Whether positive or negative.
It was all positive. Hayden. I think that I was fortunate that I came into Pave America and we had critical mass where we had presidents that had been working with people like yourselves in other markets. And so the reputational check was very easy to do. So one of the markets that we wanted to be in and be in very quick was Denver. And when we asked around, you were one of the companies that constantly came to mind. I know Tom had met with Zach at a previous conference. And so it was, hey, this is a great market. It's got a great management team that wants to stay on, and they're in hyper growth mode, and we want to make that happen. So met with you all, liked what we saw, even before we started the diligence process, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit, and then I think it's been an incredible success story post close that not only are you beating expectations here in Denver, but you've greenfielded two new locations and Albuquerque and in Phoenix.
Yep, just this year. So it's been huge for us. Zach, what's your kind of perspective on just getting the ball rolling for selling your company, National Pavement Partners? How did that all go out for you?
You know what? I was a little apprehensive at first. I think, Hayden, you were kind of the one that it's like, hey, man, we should spend some time. We should talk with these guys. Let's at least hop on a call. So I was like, all right, let's do it. And then, immediately after our first call with Brandon, I was like, man, it seems like a really, really good group. I loved what I heard. And then again, obviously knowing all the different owners that were in the group and still operating and, looking at the long run with the team was super appealing for us. And so, it went from apprehensive to very excited. And then, getting through all the fun stuff after that was, that's always its own thing, but it was good.
I think a lot of that to me starts with Tom. There's a lot of companies that have roles like mine where they don't get to have as much fun as I do. And I do think that because Tom has this great culture at the Pave America level, we scout for people that want to buy into that culture and are already running it at the local level, which means that we don't have to go in and do fixing, right? We want to give capital, the support to amplify what's going on. And I think that makes this job a lot of fun.
That is true. Yeah, you're not necessarily solving all kinds of problems for these companies.
Right.
You're just putting more fuel on the fire for them to continue to grow. And that's the thing about our business too, is there's companies that make giant leaps year over year because the demand is there. I think number one, it's the demand, but it's also just the opportunity that's out there too. There's a lot of turnover, and with companies in our business, that there's a lot of doors being opened to people that never thought they would have a chance. So what, if your side, you're really looking at companies and owners who are maybe ready to take the next step, more so it sounds like to grow. Right. But they're looking for a strategic financial partner or partner in general to help fund that. What are some characteristics that is important for Pave America when you guys are looking at companies to acquire? Like, what are you guys looking for?
I think the first thing that we look for is the culture fit. And I know that sounds super cheesy, but
yeah, it is.
Before it is, but before Tom and I even get into, valuation, I mean, similar to how we did it with National Pavement Partners, we go meet with them live, because a deal can look perfect within the four corners of financial statements or a purchase agreement. But if you don't like the person you're going to be working with after the deal closes, it's not going to be a good turnout. So that is first and foremost what we look for. I think after that, what we're looking for is somebody that really wants to grow the business, and maybe even wants to stay on with the business in the post-close world. Because I don't know if people can tell, but I don't know how to pave. I'm not an operator. I would never tell someone how to do their job. So we need people that are really strong, and or they have a succession plan with people they already have on the bench ready to take over. And that story has been proven out. Like there's the growth story that's both in the financials, and then whether they've scaled, operationally put certain, systems or processes in place. And that doesn't mean they have to be super sophisticated, right? But you see that they understand what it takes to grow a business and to lead people. And that's where the financial metrics start to play out, right? So I think that, for us, it's wanting to see that growth story. And, you mentioned, we're able to help them de-risk, right? So you're not putting your personal collateral on the line if you do go out and hire new people, or you need new equipment to take that larger contract.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I think from our first dinner, you guys made it very clear. I remember riding with Zach to that dinner, and we were like, what do you think you're going to ask us? What should we tell them? And it was a lot more, just candidly, it was a lot more nonchalant and casual than I expected. My wife stayed up because we got home at like 10:30 or whatever, and she's all excited. And she's like, so what'd you guys talk about? How'd it go? I'm like, they just really kind of wanted to know us. So it was, very easy conversation to have. And that was one of the big talking points that Tom had was, we're looking for people that we like to work with. And so you think about that even here locally with our own subsidiary companies, like the culture is the buzzword. It's the cheesy. I hate saying it, to be honest, but it's super, super important. So,
well, it's what keeps your people, and we don't want, nor do we need anyone to walk out the door after we buy the business, because like Tom, Tom, myself, Pave America, we don't have brand goodwill, right? So it does us no good if we buy a company and the people are unhappy and start leaving, because that's how we put asphalt in the ground. That's how we, repair the parking lots and the roads. And that's the whole point of this endeavor.
Right. Most definitely.
To be honest with you, that's kind of where acquisitions can get sticky in our industry. We've seen it so many different times too. It's interesting, and us talking about some of this stuff, and I think back, and like when we first started talking, I don't know if you even remember, but my plan was to probably stay on for just a short amount of time, a year or two, and then head out, let Hayden take over and kind of run with things. But as we grew and built more momentum, and the more I learned about Pave America and what was being built, and all the fun opportunities, like I got a whole second wind of like, man, let's go, and
Yeah.
I think I would maybe encourage people to consider like, hey, there might be some more wind in the sails after this, just because of all the great momentum that everyone's got going on. Um, you know, and then to echo on what Hayden said too, when we went to have dinner with you, and there's a few companies we spoke with. I think you know people go into those type of things thinking there's going to be an outcome, but it's such a process. There's so much. It's so much of a process, but it's a fast process, but it's a process. And so like, you don't get the answers you're looking for at that first meeting. You don't get all these other things. And so understanding that, I think, for owners is important as well too, like as they start to navigate through that whole that sale or acquisition merger.
It's a trust building exercise, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't become instantly, best friends with someone and trust them, your first meeting, right? It takes time to build that rapport. And I think that's why, Tom's allowed me to take the approach that we have, because all those data points that you were prepared to answer, that's all going to be provided to me in a document in a data room that I'm going to read, right? And so it's really kind of vetting the, hey, how are we going to work together going forward? And asking you questions about that are technical isn't going to get me the answer that I want. I want to know, like, hey, can we sit down and have a conversation? There's going to be times we disagree. How are we going to get through it, right? And I think to your point, Zach, on the second win, it's not uncommon, right? I think there's a lot of things that do change with an acquisition, like accounting systems and payroll systems that at the beginning can be a little bit painful, but a lot of times what that's doing is taking back office duties off of your back. So you actually get to go do the fun stuff. And we have people that is their job to do, payroll or to, roll up all the financials into the monthly close process. And so you can go do the more fun things. And I think that's one of the additional benefits that the platform offers, is that the customer relationships, going out and doing the fun stuff, putting asphalt in the ground, that stays the same. And the stuff that I'm sure a lot of sellers find a headache because they did not want to be an HR expert or a commercial insurance expert, we have the people that are and can handle that.
Right. And it takes so much to run this kind of business.
Right.
Like there's stuff down to the finest detail that you wouldn't think would ever need to be put in place.
Right.
That actually does need to be put in place. And so, if you were at a size like where we were at, kind of the mid-sized company, doing a decent amount of revenue, but we were ready to go, you're at this inflection point where you're like, okay, I got to hire like very specific people for these positions that might not be moving the company forward. Or you can partner up with like Pave America, who's already got the back infrastructure in place. And then, I know just from us, from once we got fully integrated, we move so much more faster and efficient just with the setup that we have. So it's been a huge perk, and I feel everyone in here is just happier and they're not working as crazy, because a lot of the stuff that you try to figure out on your own without quote unquote big brother helping you out,
right,
you're just winging it.
Yeah.
You're just doing what you think's the best, and sometimes you get a good process built and it's great, and sometimes you're like, wow, we're doing things 3 or 4 times the same thing, and so we're just burning daylight over here.
Even from a safety perspective, we're not in a business where if an app has a glitch, people can't access information for 2 minutes to a couple hours, right? Like it's dangerous, right? And there's people that are dependent on the services being completed so that they can have customers accessing their stores or their roads. And to me, it's a lot to take on. So it is good to have some, not only just experts maybe within certain subject matters at the Pave America level, but access to the advisory pool, lawyers and consultants that can come in and make sure, hey, we're not tripping over something that's going to mess up the business at the local level.
Right. Even down to like stuff that I was not unaware of even like the proper way to dispose of a spray paint can that we use to mark out jobs. And it's crazy how much there is. So it's good to have that back end knowledge to prevent the what ifs in the future.
Right.
So What's the, speaking of the process, I want to do kind of let Brandon explain it, then I want to get Zach's input. What is kind of the full process if you were to break it into major sections with a brief description of selling your company and you guys acquiring?
So there's, call it 3 to 4 stages. The first stage is sourcing, and that's really the getting to know you phase. So that's where you have an initial call, understand the background. We would talk about kind of the Pave America story, how we see, the business partnership, going forward. And if they like us, then what we'll do, you'll enter into a confidentiality agreement. So that way nobody's sharing your information, goes both ways. And we'll ask for some preliminary information to estimate evaluation. Say, hey, look, this is what the market says the business is worth and what we're willing to pay. If this is of interest, then we would sign a letter of intent. And the letter of intent outlines the valuation and certain conditions that would be required to be met to close. For instance, making sure that what we're looking at is accurate, right? So once we sign a letter of intent, we move from sourcing into due diligence, which is everybody's favorite part of deals. So and Zach will talk about this better, and I've been on sell side processes, so I know it's a bit invasive. It's a little bit like going through a physical exam. Yeah, colonoscopy is probably a better term for it. So now no one's gonna call me. Yeah. But the reason that we do it is that hopefully what we're doing is creating a life-changing event financially for the seller. And for us to be able to write that check, the lenders and the sponsors need to understand what's at stake. We need to look under the hood of the business. So there's several work streams that involve finance, tax, legal, labor and employment, safety, commercial insurance, and we'll have various work streams. I've got a great team that helps keep all of this on track, and that process probably takes 8 to 10 weeks, generally speaking. Every business is different. There can be complexities that make that duration last a bit longer, but I'd say generally 2 to 2.5 months is what it takes for the diligence process to be complete. So once diligence is complete, we move from diligence into day one readiness planning. So what we're trying to do during day one readiness planning is making sure that your people are going to get paid exactly as they are, the right amounts. We're making sure that the lights turn on, that customers can place orders, you can have your equipment out there, that there's not any disruptions to business. Like the greatest compliment you can give us is on day one, after the closing call, you felt like nothing happened, because it meant people can go to work and do their jobs and everyone feels that there's a sense of normalcy. And then once we get through day one, we move into the final stage, which is integration. And that's where, we'll move to NetSuite, our accounting system from QuickBooks or another system. We'll move people to Paycor, which is our payroll system, and HRIS, and other processes like that. And that part can also be a little painful because it's change. But what I would tell business owners is, if you were going to grow your business and double it in 3 to 4 years, you're going to have to make decisions and make changes as it relates to a lot of your systems.
Yep.
And the RFP process, which is where you go out and have, bids for what kind of systems you want to use, is not easy. There's a lot of people that are, not honest brokers, in that space telling you that their system can do everything that it wants. We've gone through that process. So you can know that you're probably going to have to make this change, and we're going to make the upfront part of that a lot less painful and a lot less expensive, because a lot of times you have to use consultants to come in and help you evaluate.
Right. So
I put it in the package way. Now Zach can give the honest, honest blunt.
Yeah. Hey man, you know what? That's pretty good. I would say, like, as I kind of thought through even like what you were just saying in the process of it, it reminded me of buying a house. Like, you got to go to your lender, you got to submit all your financials, you got to go through all the fun stuff, you get pre-approved, right, which is kind of like your LOI, and then you go through all the fun stuff. Once you find something, then it's like getting through the finish line of closing the house, and just for those of people who've been through it, whether it's their first house or whatever, it's it's kind of just like that. And then getting to the closing table is always fun, signing and then, drinking a little champagne at the end. You're like, okay, great, we did it. But then you have the move-in part, right? Like you have the move in part, and then
Right.
so like you get the pinnacle, and then it's like, okay, I got to move in. And for us, it's, it's the integration, it's the different processes and all that other stuff. And it takes, 5 or 6 months to like really get settled into your new house. But it's like, that's really what it's like, and I think if you've got good teams around, you got good data and stuff like that, sometimes I could see it being very smooth for the most part. And then if there's clunky stuff along the way, like it gets uncovered. And then you figure that stuff out too. But the biggest thing is like, everyone wants to get clear to close. Right. And so
Right.
it's very similar in that regard. And that's kind of how I felt like it was, just on a different level, different scale.
That's a great analogy, honestly. That's pretty good. So, and I want to use this episode too to really share Zach's entrepreneurial story too, because, ultimately it was him and his mom's decision to, at the end of the day, I was just blessed to be part of it. And, you hired me as a sales guy, and I kind of sold you on why you should sell your business. So sorry, I was just using what you hired me to do at first, but
Did a good job.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. So what is, going back to your journey, your entrepreneurial journey? I mean, you were striping parking lots in high school all the way up till closing day. Kind of give us a little snapshot of what your journey looked like, so maybe some other potential sellers can realize, hey, we're not just some weirdos that sold the private equity company. Like this was a strategic move for you.
Yeah. I mean, the paving industry is very much a family business for us. It has been. I grew up in the paving industry. I've from a small family-owned company, and then I watched my parents grow their business into a pretty well-oiled machine, and then actually, watch them go through a merger acquisition as well too, with the family business that we grew up building together. From that point, kind of got the ability to start building NPP again on a different scale. And with NPP, that was a very personal company for us. Like I was like, man, this is legacy. This is what my kids are going to remember one day. This is what they're going to eat off of. This is going to be part of like who I am, and then who like attached to our last name as well too. We're Polish, so we're proud. We're very proud, right?
You have a way better last name
and Mexican. So couple those two together. But neither here nor there. So wanted to be very proud of like what we were building, right? But I know, and I kind of knew in the back of my head that what we were building, what I wanted, what I had envisioned for National Pavement Partners was bigger than Zach, bigger than Milewski, bigger than myself. Like it was a team thing. And as I started getting further and further along, I'm like, man, it gets to a point where you have only so much bandwidth, and you have to have the right resources and allies along the way to really become like what you want to become. We built National Pavement Partners into a fun, strong business. We did a lot of cool things along the way, but for us to take that next step, we had to partner with a company like yourselves. And to be honest with you, since that point, like what we've been able to do with starting greenfielding Arizona and having strong financial backing and support, and then same thing with New Mexico, like I get to continue to build out what I had in mind at the beginning, with the right support, the good team members. And, that's really where we're at in like my background, and then all the way up to current snapshot.
Yeah. And I think even just being out there with you in Phoenix this past Friday, it's been amazing to see, because we have talked about the expansion for so many years and what would it look like if we did this, what would we look like this. And, you kind of talking with the team, I kind of paused and looked around and realized, wow, we're actually here.
We're doing it. Yeah.
We're doing it. And so, we're still fairly young in the grand scheme of businesses that have been around for longer than us, this is our 10th season. So, just the support of PAs allow us to take bigger swings in which is the kind of company that we are.
Right.
So it helps support more of who we are. We're risk takers for sure. We execute and we win a lot. I'm not going to say that's always been perfect, but we always try and we always swing. So couldn't have asked for a better partner.
Well, we want you to do exactly what you're doing, right? I think that, I'm head of mergers and acquisitions, but you could probably just say acquisitions, right? Like I think that there's mergers where you're bringing two large companies together, and then, people are looking, I have overlapping, workforces. I don't need these facilities. We're doing acquisitions. Like the goal is to grow. So when we buy a company, if you've got a passion that you're like, hey, I want MPP's brand in, Phoenix, I want it in New Mexico. Tom's like, yes, that's exactly what we want to do. So I think that as people are looking at, selling their businesses, whether it's in this sector or another one, evaluate your partner and what the focus is of their strategy, because that'll help you understand if it's the right fit for you.
Yeah, and I think that segues perfectly into the next point. There's the good and bad of private equity, just like there's the good and bad of asphalt paving.
Right.
And I think now more than ever, the private equity is really coming into our space because people are realizing the opportunity that's out there and just coming into trades in general. And frankly, money's going to flow wherever the money's being made. So, why is Pave America different than as a roll-up organization than other private equity companies? Or like, what's the differentiator we focus on that allows us to continue to grow like we have been?
Happy to talk through that. And I'm not going to defend private equity as a whole. I do think there's sort of a stigma right now that everyone is Darth Vader in that space. I'm not Darth Vader. And that's not to say it's not without some reasons, right? Similar to, people like to bag on lawyers, that they're all, scam artists, but we all know really good lawyers that do a really good job, right? I think where private equity has misstepped, especially in service businesses, is that they tried too much to centralize a lot of the customer-facing function to a corporate person that did not understand the business and did not understand the customer. So I think that why Pave America works is because, Tom's strategy has been one that's very humble. Like, we don't come in and if we did, and please tell us so that we don't do it going forward, but we never want to come in and say that we know how to run your business better than you. And that's why we look for really strong partners, because we don't know how to run it better than you, and we want someone that just needs the plug-in so that they can go grow. And so I think that by you maintaining the relationships with your customers, you maintaining your relationships with your employees, yes, you're part of a big network, and there's a lot of benefits in that that you would get at most roll-ups. But as much as we can, we try to keep the local, companies, branches, whatever you want to call it, autonomous in the decision-making skills, so that, sure, you have a boss, Tom's the CEO, but you don't feel like Big Brother is watching over your shoulder, or that there's going to be these massive decisions that are just allocated across the board and forced down to your level. And I think that where private equity has misstep is that there's a lot of times when, if you have a background, like when I was in consulting, I was working with, Fortune 50 companies, and you would take that approach because the companies were so large and there was so much scale that you just had to, right? But that doesn't apply in all industries. And so I think that Tom has the trust of our sponsors, and Tom picks people that he trusts, and that allows us to keep that local flavor and decision-making capabilities at a level where the customers don't feel the impact.
That's the word, the local flavor too. I think
that's better than culture.
Flavor. I like the flavor. The flavor.
The flavor.
The flavor. I'd be curious to see what somebody describes our flavor as. Who knows? But I think that's totally it too. And the other misconception is, all private equities just cut heads, cut costs, and they just do that. Where Pave America, the they even said it in the call, the organic growth, which means the existing companies to grow within, is the biggest priority. And so companies that are coming onto the platform, it's not just, you're sold and we're going to get rid of a couple people, cut costs. You might get another skid steer or something like that and call it good. It's like, okay, what do you guys need to go? Where do you guys foresee this going, and how can we sponsor it and fund it, I guess?
I would say in our space, and I think Zach, you can attest to this, is that you run super lean, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a head that you have to feed out of your company's piggy bank, right? Like that's not something that's you take for granted. So we see a lot of companies where maybe they haven't been able to hire a full-time controller that has a CPA background that's going to know how to do the books in a way that a company of our size needs to close the books.
Yep.
And our goal is to say, hey, let's find you the right person to help you out, right? I think the only times we've ever let someone go is when someone has a family member on the roster that they didn't want to get in trouble with their spouse, and they're like, hey, will you take the fall for me? Or generally, I feel like adding heads to business as opposed to taking them away.
Yeah, and I think that's go ahead.
No, I mean, you guys helped us out right off the bat. I mean, we kind of identified what our needs were going through diligence. And then right afterwards, we were on the hunt for it. And, you guys helped us locate a rock star, which has been a great addition to our team and just made us that much stronger. And kind of like what you were saying, Hayden, I think there is a little bit of a weird stigma against private equity in our industry, but if we think about it, it's the same stigma that contractors get as well too. Like, well, are you guys doing what you say you're going to do? Is it, it's everywhere. Right. So there's good and there's bad all over the place.
And I'll tell you one thing too, is like our crews, whether they're owned by private equity or not, when they go out and pave parking lots, they put their boots on the same. They put on their vest the same as any other non-private equity-owned company. They go to work. Our sales team does the same thing. So in the grand scheme of things, as much as we want to kind of argue and go back and forth with people who don't believe in the trend that's coming, like we really still do the same thing at the end of the day. Right. It doesn't make us bad people. Just we chose a different path, and that's totally fine. I think the hardest part is that this industry is such a family-oriented industry. It really is. Trades in general, and so that's something that you're very proud of, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it's like, kudos to you guys. If that's how you guys want to run, then you guys do it. But, we're still going to play ball the same way as you guys. We're still going to pave the same way, seal coat. I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Well, and Tom and I will tell every single business owner that we talk to, you don't have to sell. Like if anyone tells you that you have to sell now or you're going to get left behind, that's a lie. It's a $50 billion industry. It is highly fragmented. And yes, there are more firms coming into the space, but you can do this on your own. And I think that's why it's really important to vet, the partner. For us, given the size that we're at, I mean, I don't think either of you ever spoke to anyone at the private equity level, right?
No.
Right. And so to me, Tom and I, if we're doing our job, you never have to meet them. Like if you wanted to, obviously happy to make introductions, but they're not in the business because we're self-selecting the right partners and we're helping them grow post-close. If they're not growing post-close, that's when they might get involved and that's when people are unhappy. So I think as long as you're executing the plan and you got the right flavor going throughout the entire organization, it's a growth story and it shouldn't feel any different than if you were family owned or backed by some type of larger business or a private equity business.
Right. What was celebration day like for you, man? Or I guess closing day? What was kind of the emotions you had, if you had any?
Oh man. So we were up pretty late. We kind of sent emails, all the way through late that evening. And then again, early the following morning. And then we were on the phone on like a Zoom call for quite a while till we got to closing the following morning. I think just with everything that I had going on at the time, I was like, whew, like you would think, like I was like, all right, let's get some champagne. Let's go do this. Let's go do this. But realistically, it was like, we got to take a little bit of a deep breath. And then we were excited to get back to it. I mean, there was so many cool things that were going at the same time. So, it's like, all right, cool. Let's start knocking out these things. So celebration was kind of postponed, and it's just been like, we've taken it along the way, when we're able to, but it's been great.
I will never forget the night before and then the closing for this deal, because I was dialed into the closing call on the plane because my flight was delayed, and I had to be on the call. So I'm sitting there like trying to talk under my breath. I'm dialed in the Wi-Fi, trying not to violate some like FAA policy. And if the FAA is listening, I did not do that. But then came straight to the office, and I think everybody's like, "What do you want to do now?" I was like, "I want to go to sleep."
Yeah.
That was what everybody wanted.
Sleep. Yeah. But man, I was so surprised with Brandon, you and your team, like how hands-on you guys were. It wasn't like a you versus us. It was very much, you guys really, really helped us. You, Jerome, you guys did a great job of, like helping us make sure we got through everything, which was really, really nice. It was a breath of fresh air.
It was a true partnership. I think that's another great point that I wanted to bring up just from our side. Obviously, I wasn't an owner, but I was very much involved with the due diligence process, and I think I made God knows how many Excel sheets for you. It was
critical piece.
I played a little bit.
We all got to know each other really, really well.
Right, exactly. But, I remember same thing as you had these expectations, just like the first dinner that we talked about. We had the expectations that, dude, we got to look 100. We have to be 100% perfect, the most well-oiled machine in order to be able to sell. We're like, and there were some questions on there and stuff that, we've looked at each other and I didn't even know what the question was asking necessarily. And that was before
That's my fault.
That was before Chat GPT even came out too. So that was right before it. So but you realize that you guys aren't looking for perfection, because truthfully, there is no perfect company out there. It's as much as the facade is out there that things run smooth all the time and everyone's super happy all the time, you got everything dialed in, it's not the truth. And so just to feel that grace that you guys gave and the partnership of getting us through it was amazing. Even like there's a lot of questions that we were held up on for due diligence, I think on 2 days before my kid was born, and it was kind of holding things up. And I'm like, Brandon, I don't know how to answer these. And you're like, okay, just put no. And then put no. Right. Because we didn't have the information. You guys just want to really see where we were at to help grow and get all these pieces put together. So it was awesome.
The questions are daunting. And again, the reason that we ask is not because I want to give you a bad grade, right? It's the lenders and sponsors require certain information to underwrite a deal. And then also there's things that we just want to know heading into integration, that if we can help support, a process change, we know how to do that, right? We're equipped with that information. But I think that is another thing that I would look for, as people look for partners is, me and my team are super hands-on. We know that we speak a language that is foreign to 95%, of the world, that it's deal speak. The reason we write things is so that we can use it across, and then I feel like nobody understands it sometimes except us. But, I think the point is that we like to go on site, meet with you, we'll ask the questions, and then we can just tick off like we did. I remember at the Gaylord Hotel, we just went through questions like does not apply, so that we can get through the process. Because, my goal, it's not my money that I'm deploying, right? And my goal is to, you built this business, all of your liquidity or seller's liquidity is tied up in this business. Like, how do you turn sweat equity into liquidity, right? And getting to do that, getting to see people on closing day, yes, you're going to be exhausted, but you can still have a glass of champagne and see how excited they are and how excited they are for their families it makes the job not only professionally fun, because my team, we're all deal junkies and love the adrenaline, but it's personally rewarding. And, I like to say that, we're good friends now, and I feel like I've made some really, really good friendships along the way as well. And I think you could attest that the president network, it's fun to go see the interaction between, all the presidents once they're inside the platform.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, it's been joining with PA. I mean, that was a big selling point for us, was some of the companies that are in the industry. I mean, Zach's been in the industry 2-3 times as long as I have, and he knew names of companies that we are now working alongside with, that it's just it's really an honor to know. And you realize that how great the owners and the other leaders of these organizations are. Like, there's such great people in Wisconsin, New Jersey. Not everyone in New Jersey is a bunch of jerks, all right? Even though it's the East Coast mentality, there's some nice people out there.
They still fist bump, though.
Yeah, exactly. So that was huge for us, and it's been truly amazing being part of the platform. I'm sure Zach can echo that or feel the same.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it starts with Tom York, like, for sure. I mean, he is, like the glue to a lot of what we've got going on in terms of, like, he's a servant leader. Guy works his tail off, like, and if he's working that hard, you gotta be working hard. So, but all the other great people who are in the organization, we've learned a lot from, and we've created some good friendships too.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
So to wrap this up, a lot of your time and your running joke is you pay your mortgage in Texas, in Dallas. A lot of your time is spent on airplanes.
It is.
And with that, you decide to write a book about it.
I did.
Let's talk a little bit about that and your wild hair that you got. I'm gonna give you a little plug here.
So it's funny when you live on the road, and to be fair, Tom actually lives on the road more than me, which is a further testament to what you're talking about, being a servant leader and working hard. But when you live on the road, you spend a lot of times in hotels, and we're not always in or ever in Manhattan or super sexy locations. So your choices are, you can either go crazy at night watching cable news, or you can be drunk in your hotel room alone, or you can write a book, or maybe some combination of the three. So that's that's sort of what happened, right? But it was something that I'd wanted to do, kind of cataloging all of the crazy things you see in airports, traveling as much as I do, and then my journey to what I do. We kind of talked about it, early on, but it wasn't so linear, right? The LinkedIn story is always different than the journey, and It was fun to catalog that, tie it into air travel, so that people wherever they are on their professional development journey can see that there's going to be delays, there's going to be turbulence, sometimes there's going to be a canceled flight, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be another one, or you can hop on a connecting flight that ultimately gets you there.
I love that. There's a bigger why to the book, for sure, which is amazing.
Title is a little negative sounding.
Yeah, no, all these interviews you got to do, I know talking about it has been hilarious. Some people think that he's a true, airport TSA expert.
I've been asked about aircraft safety, and I'm not an engineer.
Yeah, no clue. Yeah. That's all right, man. It's awesome to see that, and pretty much a lot of people in the organization read it. So a lot of people across the country, especially, could probably relate to it too. So I think that's good for the next episode of Pave America. We're so excited to have you on. Really, if it wasn't for you getting us through, you were such a huge part of it, we wouldn't be here, and we built an awesome friendship for sure, and partnership.
Absolutely. Well, and y'all built an awesome business. So, I mean, it was one of those that we were, it was years in the making of, courting. And then, I mean, we were super excited to be here. And then, we're a couple months from ski season. So, we can do one of these from the slopes.
Exactly.
I'll go back then. Okay. Yeah. I'll go back for that.
Right. I think it was a more strategic move for you and Tom, because I knew you guys are.
We did close in April, so diligence was February, March. So I'm going to plead the fifth on whether we got any ski trips in on weekends.
Makes sense. That's why it took longer. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. Well, this is another episode with Pave America podcast with Brandon Blewett, Zach Milewski, Hayden Cortez. We'll see you guys next time.